TXC. Welcome back to Spill the TXC with me, your host, Amber. Today's episode is going to be a little bit different because I normally come with a plan. I normally come with, half a script. I normally know what I'm going to say before I say it. But today we are talking about something completely different. It's going to be a really different episode. I'm just going to be talking as I'm thinking. And what I want to talk about today is what's happening with the world, in particular with this year. The world has just gone crazy. And I'm not sure how to describe this year already, and we're only in month 3. I mean, it's been an eye-opener. It's been a ball squeezer. It's been a mad one on its own. And the things that I want to dive into today are the paedophiles, the aliens, and the hole in our ocean and what that means for us. So we'll start with the paedophiles because where else would we possibly start? As we dive into the paedophiles and namely the Epstein files, I do need to preface this with just because a name is mentioned in the Epstein files doesn't mean that they know what was going on, doesn't mean that they participated in anything going on. We're going to be talking about facts today, but I am also going to be giving my opinion. And my opinion is not fact. My opinion is not your opinion. I would highly, highly recommend you do your own research before making up your own opinion, and don't let my opinion sway anything that you think. Just focus on the facts and take my opinions for what they are, which is just an opinion. So if we're talking about paedophiles, sex trafficking rings, prostitution, obviously we're going to start with the Epstein files, or start and end with the Epstein files. And the first person that I want to talk about in the Epstein files is Prince Andrew. Oh, sorry, he's not a prince anymore, is he? I bloody hope he's not. Andrew. Let's talk about Andrew. My opinion before the facts are the only way that I can describe Andrew is a giant brat with wrinkles, and that's the nicest way I can describe him. So this is the guy who, when accused of SA, he thought he had somehow gotten out of that by saying, well, she can't be telling the truth because she said I sweated and I have a medical condition where I can't sweat. I've actually met somebody with that medical condition before, years and years ago. He was a wrestler and he came out of the ring and was violently ill from not being able to sweat. So if Andrew was unable to sweat as he says that he is, then surely certain activities in his life, including having sex, should lead him to being this violently ill, kind of panting like a dog. I don't know if I've ever heard anybody say that about him. I don't know if I've ever heard. And that's a big thing. And it is a big thing when you see it. You feel they're about to pass out. It's quite horrific to see. And I can't really put it into words how bad it is to see. But if someone had seen Andrew like that, if that was a regular thing for him, which if you cannot sweat, it would be a regular thing, someone would have said it. Someone would have seen him like it. But anyway, Andrew can't sweat. So the accusations that were made against him, because they included the fact that he was very sweaty when he was dancing with them, with the victims, he's just said it's not true because he can't sweat. Now, this is the same man who, he obviously wasn't involved in anything with Epstein, because this is the same man who hosted a little sleepover for his 3 best friends, Jeffrey Epstein, Ghislaine Maxwell, and Harvey Weinstein. These are all convicted sex offenders. Fact. By the way, the victim that I'm talking about, the one who accused Andrew of sweating, is Virginia Giuffre. The lady who killed herself, although in my opinion, definitely didn't. She claimed that she was forced into prostitution from Epstein and Maxwell, and that she was forced to sleep with I must stop calling him a prince. She was forced to sleep with Andrew 3 times as a minor. She was not of legal age and she was forced to do that. But Andrew doesn't sweat, so can't have been him. There has been absolutely no accountability with this man. He's denied everything. He's denied knowing about anything. Yet when Epstein got out of prison, after his first conviction for being a sex offender, for prostitution, for trafficking, Andrew met up with him, apparently to end the friendship, which led to Andrew staying at his place, at Epstein's place, for a couple of days, attending dinner parties with him, doing things that friends do. And that was how he was ending the friendship. This guy is a massive massive liar. Oh, and just as a side note, this is all allegedly, because I don't know how true this is, but I've heard that Andrew sleeps with teddy bears, and I want to give you an exact figure, but I don't have it. But I think I read it was in the 70s, 70 odd teddy bears, allegedly. Every day, his staff have to arrange the bears on the bed for this giant brat. So the bears are all arranged neatly and perfectly how they need to be, and there are 2 thrones either side of his bed, and there are 2 special bears that get to sit on the thrones. And apparently, allegedly, this is all of the A's, if the bears aren't arranged correctly, the staff get screamed at, sworn at. It's a very serious relationship, a man and his bear. And also, for somebody who knew so little about what Epstein was doing, yet was so involved with him, Andrew was one of the people who frequented Little St. James Island the most. Does that not say everything? And then we've got Andrew's ex-wife, Fergie, who apparently used to flirt with Epstein. Apparently, she may have even slept with him. She was obsessed with this man. In my opinion, had to settle for Andrew because he was her link. He was all of the royals' link. He brought Epstein into everyone's lives. And I certainly don't think everybody should be tarred with the same brush. Now, I know there's a lot going on in the media at the moment with Prince William and his escapades, shall we say. But that's very, very different to what Andrew's doing. And I really don't think, I think every family has a bad egg, maybe sometimes more than one. And if you don't know who the bad egg is, look at yourself. But that's neither here nor there. Every family has at least one bad egg. And I think Andrew just is the bad egg. And now I'm going to move on to the person who introduced Andrew to Epstein, which was, of course, Maxwell. Ghislaine Maxwell, probably the most evil woman on this planet, in my opinion. I don't mean to sound sexist here, and I know that I'm going to, but there is something different about a woman doing it. I mean, it's disgusting and it's the devil's work no matter who's doing it, but something about a woman doing it, a woman who is supposed to have that natural maternal instinct, a woman who is supposed to see, a child she's never seen before, a child who looks like they need help and take them under her wing because women have that. We have that nurture inside, and I know not all women have it, and I know some men have it and some men don't have it, but that is what comes with, or what's known to come with being a woman, is just wanting to protect and look after the young and the innocent and the ones that can't do it for themselves. That's what we do as mums. And I know Ghislaine Maxwell isn't a mum, and thank fuck she's not a mum. Thank God. Because I wouldn't put it past these people to use their own children. In fact, we've heard of cases where people do use their own children, where they're so obsessed and enamored by a famous figure that they offer their own children up for sexual abuse. We've heard this before. There are statements to the police in the Epstein files, statements that have been made over the course of years, statements from one particular person that I've been looking at. And thank goodness this person's name has been redacted because they have given a lot of information. And the 2 statements in particular that I've been looking at are one day apart from each other from the same person. And I'm actually going to read these statements for you. I'll put them up as well so that you can read for yourself. But this is chilling. This is absolutely chilling. Previous reports have been sent since 2007 to your offices regarding a myriad of issues, including child trafficking in Thornhill, Ontario by Jeffrey Epstein. These reports over the years have been in regards to numerous individuals, namely George and Carmen Barahona, presently in Florida prison for Nubia Barahone death, as well as Madeleine McCann abduction / Haley Cummings kidnapping / Kyron Horman and others. The extensive daycare / adoption ring in the Thornhill, Ontario area is still functioning as usual. And Epstein was seen here last year with his hair dyed brown. In the vicinity of the compound area mentioned in those reports, also seen was Peggy Buckley McMartin of the McMartin Preschool satanic trafficking case. That is going to be an episode on its own because that is something we need to deep dive into. In other words, a huge enterprise of child trafficking within the report sent. This report is in regards to the money laundering and money movement of Epstein / Clinton Foundation money. This is so much to take in. So the police, these people, they're being told that these people are seeing what's going on, and they're screaming it from the rooftops. You know, this is happening. Madeleine McCann, the most well-known child abduction case. They're talking about, they've seen her. They know what's. I just can't. Like, I just had a bit of a crash out then, but I feel like you're going to understand that, and I feel like you're going to be there with me, because this is just How has this been allowed to happen? How has this happened under our noses for so long? And just while we're on that, just while we're on Madeleine McCann, there is another statement to do with Ghislaine Maxwell as well in the Epstein files, and it's from somebody who said that I can't remember where they were. I want to say France, but I don't know, so don't quote me on that. They saw a little girl walking down the street with a woman with short, black, cropped hair. And they didn't know who the woman was at the time, but they know her now to be Ghislaine Maxwell because of what's going on, because of how public Ghislaine Maxwell is now, because of how she's a household name and everybody knows who she is. So they recognise who she is now, but back then when it happened, which was 2 years after Madeleine went missing, they didn't recognise who she was. I don't know what that was. So this statement states that this person saw who they now to know be Ghislaine Maxwell walking down the road with a little girl who resembled Madeleine McCann. But they couldn't be 100% sure, because the woman, who we now know to be Ghislaine, was telling the little girl to keep her hand over her eye. And the little girl did, which would have been the eye with the drooped pupil, which would have been the only defining factor that somebody could, just by physically looking at her, say, yes, that is 100% Madeleine McCann. The person who made the statement also noted that there was a middle-aged man with grey hair walking up front. He was clearly with the two of them, but was walking off a little bit further. Jeffrey Epstein. And just referring back to the statement that I just read, Jeffrey Epstein was in Ontario with his hair dyed brown. He was in disguise, incognito. Why? What was he doing? Why would such a public figure need to be incognito if he's there for charity work? Also, in that statement that I just read to you, it said about the money laundering and money movement of the Epstein/Clinton Foundation money. I think we need to talk about the Clintons. I want to start with Hillary Clinton. And now for Hillary, I'm going to have to say everything is alleged and nothing is proven. And we only have our own gut and the facts that we can look up for ourselves, you know, the evidence that we can research ourselves. But let us not forget Hillary Clinton and the famous Pizzagate. Now, for those of you who don't know, Hillary Clinton's emails, actually, was it Hillary Clinton's or was it one of the I think it was one of the Podesta brothers' emails. We're going to talk about the Podesta brothers, don't you worry about that. So one of the Podesta brothers, I think it was either one of them or Hillary Clinton, their emails got hacked and released. And now I can't tell you the emails word for word, but I can give you a gist. Emails were found where they appeared to be talking in code, and that code was with Italian food. So there would be certain emails about, you know, this amount of money of spaghetti in the jacuzzi at this time. None of it quite made sense until somebody cracked the code. And I've heard rumours, and these are rumours. These are not my opinions. These are not fact. These are complete rumours that I have no way of justifying or seeing if they're real. But I'm going to tell you the rumours, as long as you know they are rumours. There are rumours that the FBI went to somebody who was already in prison, who was known for being large in the trafficking game. And they took the emails to him and he cracked the code because he knew the code. And apparently, allegedly, rumoured, is that certain Italian foods described certain children. So you would have an Italian food for a blonde-haired little girl. You would have an Italian food for a brown-haired little boy. Different Italian foods for different races, different hairstyles, different... It was a menu as such. But you know, the whole thing was debunked, and there is no way of us proving whether it's true or not. We can just make up our own minds from the research and from what our gut tells us. But anyway, Hillary Clinton did an interview on this, and she was asked some quite hard-hitting questions. And she deflected, as she does. She's very good at doing that. We've seen her do that many, many times. But what really boiled my blood in this specific interview is when she was asked about the emails, her reply was, well, what can I say? My friends like Italian food. And I'll tell you why that boils my blood, because you're making light of a very serious situation. Whether you're guilty or not, these things still happen. And it's being proven right now that these things are still going on to this day. Now, swiftly moving on to Hillary's husband, Bill, the most oblivious, most innocent man in the world. Because you see, Bill was surrounded by paedophiles but just had no idea and wasn't involved in any of it. Can you imagine? I've just had a quick thought of I'm not really sure how well I'm doing with portraying the facts. I think I'm more just portraying my opinion on all of you. So I am going to be mindful of that, or try to be as I go on. Bill Clinton, he's not been officially accused of anything, and there is nothing to tie him to any wrongdoings. There is no proof that he was involved with anything. There are your facts. Here are my opinions. How can this man be surrounded by so many paedophiles and have no idea? Even though on some of his trips with the Clinton Foundation, where he was traveling on Epstein's planes, he would see young girls on the plane with Epstein that were apparently nothing to do with him, although we do have a picture of him getting a massage from one of them. But he said he just thought that they were plane staff, so an air hostess, and that's her job. You know, he didn't question her age because he's oblivious. He had no idea, the poor man. But not only was this man friends with the paedophiles and, you know, swimming with them, chilling in jacuzzis with them, setting off on planes with them, going to their islands, allegedly going to their islands. Not only was he surrounding himself with friends that were paedophiles, he was also hiring them. And this comes from the Epstein files also. In fact, I'm going to read it to you. Who it was from and who it was sent to is all redacted. But this is what it says. I have information about a sexual predator who was a pilot for Bill Clinton. He may or may not be involved in Jeffrey Epstein's scandal, but I believe his flight manifests and lifestyle deserve a closer look. I am one of his abandoned children, and I can say that his profile fits that of someone who could assist your inquiries and maybe with personal involvement. He shows strong indications of being a sociopath, and his son is a national security advisor, and he changed both his Christian as well as surname when he obtained his work permit and residency. He was completely surrounded by paedophiles. I will say it again, but yet he had no idea. You know, I even saw Kevin Spacey, who is not in this episode, by the way. I've purposely left him out of this episode because I don't think I would be able to give any factual information about him and keep it as that, because my opinions on Kevin Spacey are far too strong. And I think I'm better off, for the sake of my YouTube channel, to leave him out of this episode. We may revisit that at a later date. I'm not too sure at the moment. But I did see the other day an interview between Kevin Spacey and Piers Morgan. Love Piers Morgan, by the way. Just need to throw that in there. But Kevin Spacey was obviously talking his innocence with all of this, as he would. And factually, there is nothing to say that he's not innocent in all of this. So, factually, you know, innocent until proven guilty, whatever. He was talking about how he didn't like Epstein. First of all, he'd never met Epstein, but then he didn't like Epstein, so that makes sense. He had flown on Epstein's planes a few times, but it was all for the Clinton Foundation, and he was doing works with the Clinton Foundation. And the reason he didn't like Epstein, although when he first described it, he didn't even know Epstein was on the plane with them. He had no idea. But then later on in the interview, the reason he didn't like Epstein was because Epstein had brought young girls onto the plane, and Kevin Spacey thought that that could be detrimental to the president, and that Epstein was putting the president's name at risk. That same president that received a shoulder massage, which we've got photo evidence of. by one of the young girls. This all makes so much sense, doesn't it? Did I finish talking about Ghislaine Maxwell? I feel like I'm jumping about all over the place, which is a true indication of what my brain looks like. So you're getting a little view of what's going on inside of here right now. So apologies for jumping all over the place, but let's visit back to Ghislaine Maxwell, who is currently in prison. She was in a high security prison, which is where all paedophiles, predators, traffickers go, because they're seen as a risk to everybody, not just to minors. And that's right, they are a risk to everybody. That's exactly where they should be. But somehow, because you know, people with power and money, they get treated differently to us little people. Somehow she's been moved to a low security prison, which from where I'm standing is clemency from the law. Clemency is relief from the law, and that is exactly what Ghislaine Maxwell has had. She has had relief from the law because she is currently residing in a low security prison. Now what she's come out and said, she's released a message directly to Trump. And what she has said to Trump is, grant me clemency. I'm sorry, what? Have you not already had that? Grant me clemency and I will tell the world that you are innocent. Now, what I personally think, my opinion, what I think she's done there is made Trump look guiltier than ever. And we're going to move on to Trump in a minute because we know he's guilty now. But what she did, because we didn't know at the time, we didn't have 100% facts and proof like we have now. But when she released this to Trump about getting clemency, about telling the world that he's innocent, all she did was manage to make him look even more guilty, because an innocent man doesn't need a guilty woman, a guilty paedophile who's currently residing in prison, to say that he's innocent. From what I know, he didn't grant her clemency because I guess common sense prevails for once, and he knew how that was going to make him look. But he probably didn't know what was about to come out in the Epstein files. Let's talk about that. When it comes to Trump, the first thing I'm going to offer you is my opinion. And my opinion is, this is not fact. My opinion is that man has some kind of dementia or Alzheimer's or something, some kind of condition that makes him medically unable to fill this role properly. I watched him do a 2-hour press conference the other day where he called Gavin Newsom the President of the United States. I also think the people around him have just failed miserably. They've let him start a war. They have let him start a war, and our eyes aren't closed. We know why he started this war. This is a distraction, as is the UFO files that are being released in September. I mean, don't get me wrong. I cannot wait. I get butterflies thinking about them. I'm so excited to just find out more of our planet, what's going on. But it's all a distraction. All of this is a distraction. Because he didn't want to come out what then actually came out after he'd done all of it, after he'd started World War III, after he's promised the release of the UFO files. It then came out anyway. Donald Trump has been accused of rape of a minor in the Epstein files. His accuser was 13 years old when this apparently happened. And we've got the likes of Pam Bondi from the Department of Justice, who is redacting Trump's names out of the files every day. Because when these files were first released, Trump's name was in them more than Jesus is in the Bible, more than Harry Potter is in the Harry Potter books. But every day it's getting less and less, because people like Pam Bondi are protecting paedophiles. Pam Bondi, by the way, who is just all over the place at the moment. What the hell is that woman doing? Absolutely embarrassing the Department of Justice, which is an embarrassment in itself at the moment anyway. But this woman, I mean, she's protecting paedophiles. She's avoiding answering any question. She's passing the buck, trying to bring other names into it, put other people at blame so that she doesn't have to answer any questions. This woman, how did she get into this role? How did she get into such a position of power? Because it certainly wasn't through brains or common sense or ability. There has to be another reason. If anybody's looked into Pam Bondi and knows the reason that she is where she is, please tell me. I beg you, tell me, because she must go way back with them. She must be involved with them in some other way, somehow, because like I say, she does not have the brain power. She does not have the ability nor the gumption to actually be good at her job. She should not be where she is. My opinion, all my opinion. But I would love to know if anybody's done a deep dive into her. And maybe if not, maybe I'll do it. Maybe that's what we'll do, another episode on Pam Bondi. I don't know. I'm going to have a look, because not one part of me believes that that woman is there through her own merit. Not one part. One of the questions Pam Bondi was asked is, why is there a whole minute missing in the CCTV from the prison the night Epstein unalived himself? Pam Bondi came back with, that's when the CCTV reset, that's when the tapes reset themselves. So that minute is missing every night. And the congressmen and women said, well, can we see that? We still haven't seen that. So as far as we know, and if that was true, if Pam Bondi was telling the truth, there would be no issue to show us that, to prove that she's telling the truth. No issue. All we'd need to see is one other day where that minute is missing. But we've not seen it, which leads us to believe that there is only one day where 1 minute is missing. And in that 1 minute that's missing, just before the tape's cut out, you see an orange shadow. I mean, who knows? Is that Epstein walking out? Because that man had enough power, enough money, and enough knowledge of other people that they would want to keep him safe. They would want to keep him quiet. Because even in prison, he can speak. My personal opinion is there's no way that man's dead. There is no way that man's dead. And I don't believe we've seen him. I believe there are lookalikes, but I don't believe that we've actually seen him, because these are some of the richest people in the world that we're talking about. They know how to disguise themselves, and they know how to stay hidden. And in all honesty, I don't think it would be that hard. I mean, we've heard about the underground tunnels linking homes. We've heard about the underground world in Colorado. I don't think it'd be that hard. And I think that's exactly what's happened. Oh, skipping back to Andrew, actually. Something popped in my mind the other day, and I wanted your opinion on it. What if Princess Diana knew too much? What if she knew what Andrew was up to? I mean, she was leaving the family anyway, wasn't she? So she had no ties and no loyalties to him. She could have spoke. And what if that was too much of a risk for the royals? Who knows? That is just a question plucked from my brain, and there is nothing factual about it. Just covering my ass here. Now, we touched on Madeleine McCann briefly from a statement that somebody had made in the Epstein files. But I just want to touch on that slightly more, because it was the most documented case of a missing child. And I don't have the words to see her name pop up in these files after so many years of all of us wondering what happened to this little girl. And now she's in the files. So let's talk about her parents a little bit and how they could possibly be linked to Epstein. It's a pretty simple link. Epstein was linked to the Podesta brothers, and the Podesta brothers are linked to Jerry McCann, Madeleine's dad. So we have Epstein, a known paedophile and child trafficker. We then have the Clintons, who are extremely good friends with Epstein, good enough to be flying on his plane for their own personal business, apparently, allegedly. The same Clintons who the whole Pizzagate revolved around. Hillary Clinton did apparently have a satanic child sex trafficking ring with the Podesta brothers. And there's the Podesta brothers. Now, Tony Podesta was very good friends with Jerry McCann, and they were actually in a high society club together called the Red Shoes Club. And there they are with their red shoes. This next thing I'm about to tell you is complete rumour. I do not know how to fact check this, so I'm just going to tell you what I've heard, but I'm going to let you know this is not a fact. Make of it what you will. Apparently, the Podesta brothers had a property in Portugal, which was about a 5-minute drive from where Madeleine McCann was staying. You know, this is nothing new. People and tribes throughout the history of the world, or the history that we've been told, but let's not get into that just yet. Throughout the history of the world, People have tortured and sacrificed animals, other people, and children. They see it as a gift to God. And I'm certainly not saying that's how I see it, because I see it as fucking disgusting. But this is what people have done for many, many years. So this is nothing new. We're just shocked that it's still here. We're still trafficking children. We're still abusing children. There are still secret underground rings where children are being trafficked. And it was happening right under our noses, and we had no idea. And just to clarify, when I say sacrifices to God, that's not what I think is happening here, and it doesn't make it any better. It's all fucking murder. But the difference here is, I think, the sacrifices are for the devil. You know, we could go so much further, because there are rumours that these elites are drinking the blood of children, scaring them to a point where adrenaline is running through their blood, and then drinking that blood because that's what keeps them young. There is nothing factual about that. This is all conspiracy theories and rumours. And you have to make your own mind up on it. You have to do your own research on it. I certainly know what I think. And I think it's all going to come out anyway. Well, you know, I think this is the tip of the iceberg. I think things are about to get so much worse. One last little note on the Madeleine McCann case. There are some drawings of the man or men that took Madeleine, and this is the drawings. And then this is a picture of the Podesta brothers. Make of that what you will. And then we have Jeffrey Epstein himself, the man of the minute, the paedophile of the century. Who is Jeffrey Epstein? First of all, how did he get so much power? How did he get so much money? He's a financier. To who? So I started looking into this, and this was a real eye-opener for me, because I've always thought that the world was run by families like the Rothschild family, and a quick little bit of information on them, which I think is just blows my mind, the brilliance of it. I'm not saying these are good people, by the way. I'm saying they had a brilliant idea. Let me take you back to the Napoleonic Wars. So you need to remember, there are no phones, there's no emails, there is no way to communicate unless you write a letter and wait for it to arrive. So our troops went out to the Napoleonic Wars and we won. And then our troops stayed out there for a couple of days celebrating. Rightly so, we've just won the war. Except for one man. And that was a member of the Rothschild family. He took it upon himself to come back early, all by himself. And he told the rest of us, we've lost. Which meant shares and stocks dropped dramatically. And at that point, the Rothschild family, they cleaned up. They bought everything. They bought the banks. They literally owned the country. And then the troops come back and announced that we've won. And stocks and shares skyrocketed. And they became one of the most influential, famous, most powerful families in the country. So I thought that they were one of the families that run the world, because you know our world doesn't get run by the presidents or the royals. You know there are families so much higher up that we don't even hear about. And it turns out when you look into it, they are so low on the pecking order. It's absolutely blown my mind. The families that run this world are people that I've never even heard of. Can you imagine how scary and dangerous these families are? And apparently every so often, I think it's every 3 years, they all get together, the most rich and powerful people of the world. And this, like I say, this isn't presidents, this isn't royals, these are people outside of the spotlight, people that we don't know. But they are so rich and so powerful. They run our lives pretty much. I mean, you know, we basically live in Big Brother now anyway, where we're constantly listened to and watched. They hear and see everything. They make our choices for us. They just let us believe we're making our own choices. Anyway, these families, they have meetings every couple of years. I think it's every 3 years. And we know of the meetings, but we have absolutely no idea. We've never known what's discussed in these meetings. It is top secret. And even though it's about us and affects us and our lives and the world we live in, we have no fucking idea. And I really hope that scares you as much as that scares me, because we should be scared by that. And if you want my opinion on it all, the people at the very top, this is my opinion, are not people at all. I think they're extraterrestrial. I can't say it. Extraterrestrial. They are extraterrestrial. You know, they're aliens. That's what I think. I think they are higher beings. I think this year is going to answer a lot of questions. I think we have aliens here, and I realise what a quick, sharp turn this has taken from paedophiles to aliens, but I really do. I believe we have aliens here. Do you guys remember? This was a few years ago now. We had a pilot. There was a pilot, and he was flying his plane as any normal pilot does. I'll search his name and I'll put it up here. I'll put a picture of him here, so if you want to look into him, you can. He was flying his plane as normal. He was talking to the people back at the air station, whatever you call it, and everything was fine. And about an hour into the flight, he didn't sound like himself anymore. He sounded like somebody completely different, like someone was speaking through him, and basically introduced himself as an alien and said, you know, yous are the only life form that kill each other and do whatnot to each other. And it was almost like we were being told that we have to be more peaceful, that this isn't right. And then a couple of hours later, he snapped back out of it and had no memory of the last 2 hours. They had heard everything at the control station. He had no memory of it. I've really not explained it very well. So like I say, picture and name, if you want to go and have a look, it's very, very interesting. So I believe that our world is run by a higher force. I mean, you've only got to look at how pyramids are made. I've personally been to the Mayan pyramids, and the way these pyramids are made, people couldn't lift these bricks. It doesn't matter how many people you've got trying to lift these huge, humongous bricks, it wouldn't work, because you couldn't get that many people carrying them to the top of a pyramid. It's beyond what we can do, in my opinion. It's beyond any technology that they would have had. And I'm well aware of the theory that there was better technology back then, and that the earth has restarted and they actually had so much more than what we have now. I can believe that to a certain extent, but still, with the way these pyramids are made, I mean, if you think about the edges, there's 4 edges of a pyramid, right? If you think about the edges, the way that the blocks are stepped, it allows the sun to shine through a step, depending on what time of the year it is, what time of the day it is, what day of the week it is. Their calendar was all dependent on how the sun shone through the steps of the pyramid. Am I making that clear enough? I'm going to have to put a picture. What I'm trying to say is they were built with a science and a knowledge beyond humans, in my opinion. And that leads me very nicely on to NASA. NASA, who explore space, right? NASA, who used to explore the sea, got to 8% and then said, no, we're going to go and explore space now. We've had enough of the sea. We've still got 92% to explore, but we've had enough. What? That makes no sense. And if you research it now, if you look it up, NASA say they are still exploring the sea, but actually in the 60s when you stopped, you'd explored 8% and you've still explored 8%. So what do you mean you're still exploring the sea? Where? What, you re-exploring what you've already explored? Because we've heard nothing new until this year. And this is very, very exciting. This information that we have found out this year could completely change what we know of the Earth. And honestly, things that I have been saying for years, my own theories, my own opinions, I think it makes them make sense. So I'm going to tell them to you. We have found a hole in the bottom of our ocean that leads to another ocean that is 3 times as big as all of our oceans put together. Make that make sense. We have absolutely no idea what's down there, although scientists have said there are probably millions of species that we have never even discovered. And here's my theory, one of them. I've got a couple that I want to talk to you about. I have always said that megalodons still exist, that they've adapted like the rest of the world to live lower, to live in denser pressures, to feed less regularly. Because you know there's stories of the big blue whales that take a nosedive into the Mariana Trench and even never come back, or come back only half a whale. What's big enough to bite half a whale? So if the megalodons somehow made it through this massive hole in the bottom of the ocean, they're calling it a fourth dimension of water, which is basically the molecules of water. They've become a solid. And we don't know if it's all like that in this sea that is 3 times as big as all of our seas put together, or if there is a layer and then more water underneath. Do you see what I'm saying? That layer could be stopping the things beneath coming up. That's one of my theories. The second theory is that is potentially where aliens live. And that's why NASA stopped exploring the sea. Because you've all seen the video of the Tic Tac entering the sea without even a splash, right? I don't know. And I think also I never ever believed that the earth could be flat until we found this new sea. And now I think it makes sense, because if the earth is flat, I know some of you are probably going to switch off at this point, but just hear me out. You don't need to agree, but just hear me out. If the earth is flat, that means the Antarctica ice wall goes all around the earth that we know, right? Which now makes sense, because the sea would fill the outside of that earth, the outside of that Antarctic wall, whatever's out there. The way I try to explain it when I'm describing it is, imagine half an avocado with the pip. And the pip sitting in the half an avocado is the world, the ball is the world as we know, is the earth as we know it. And imagine there's an ice wall all around that ball, but that ball is sitting in the bigger half an avocado. And that avocado is everything that's outside of the earth wall, including some sea. It makes sense. I mean, there could be other life forms out there. There could still be dinosaurs, although I don't believe there was ever dinosaurs. I believe there was dragons, but that's also another episode. You guys probably think I'm crazy now. But I just find it a bit ironic that we are finding out so much about the world we are living. There is so much scaremongering as well, right around the time that the elites and the rich and the powerful need the distraction. Because let's not forget about P. Diddy as well. Wasn't there rumours that Jay-Z was about to be subpoenaed? But now that's all been overshadowed with Epstein. Were they related in any way? Did they know each other? Did they work together? Or is everybody in Hollywood just doing the same thing? Is that life there? Is that normal there? Do they have so much money and so much power that they're constantly looking for the next thrill? I mean, you have to have something wrong with you to begin with to even consider that. But is that what's happening? Because how are they all falling into the same pattern unless they're all working together? So as excited as I am about the alien files being released, as intrigued as I am about finding more out about this terrible world that we live in, let's not get distracted. Let's focus, keep our focus on what really matters and on the people who really need our help. And let's not let the elites get away with things that us normal people wouldn't get away with. One last time, just before I go, a lot of this video has been my opinion. And I just want to reiterate that does not mean it has to be your opinion. I highly, highly recommend you do your own research. You look at the Epstein files, you look at the people that you're interested in and make your own mind up, and don't let my opinions influence yours. And on that note, stay safe, stay curious, and always ask questions. I love you. Bye.